My name is Christina Taylor, and I'm a paper conservator at the Philadelphia Museum of Art. Today I'll be recreating a reduced scale version of one of Mary Cassatt's color prints, The Letter, and this recreation is based off of research that I've conducted with my colleagues at the PMA, Laurel Garber and Tom Primeau, in preparation for the exhibition Mary Cassatt at Work. I will be demonstrating the various techniques she used to make this print and others in the greatest achievement of Cassatt's printmaking career, a group of multi-plate color prints that she began in 1890. Collaborating with the printer Modeste Leroy, Cassatt embarked on an ambitious project to create a set of 10 color prints depicting moments from the daily lives of modern women. Cassatt conceived the series in emulation of Japanese color woodblock prints, but she executed it using the metal plate intaglio techniques she was used to working with. Today I will be recreating The Letter, but she used the same techniques to create all the prints in this groundbreaking series. Cassatt started by drawing on paper, like I'm doing here, and the drawing that relates to The Letter is in the collection of the Cleveland Museum of Art. By examining her prints closely, we know that Cassatt used 3 plates, like these 3 copper plates here that I cut to the exact same size. There are different ways of registering plates, but we know that Cassatt used this pin registration method because we see tiny pinholes at the top and bottom of her finished print. The holes in the plate are where I'll be placing the pins during printing. Next, I clamp on another plate, so the holes are in the exact same place, and I'll do this for the 3rd plate too. Here's the drawing that I made, and in order to get this onto the plate, I'm going to be applying soft ground with a brayer. Soft ground is typically a mixture of grease, wax, asphaltum, and resin. When it's heated, it can be evenly rolled across the surface of the plate with a brayer. Once the plate cools, the grease component keeps the ground tacky and soft, so it can be lifted away in select areas. I carefully put the drawing directly on top and wrap the edges around the plate. Now I'm tracing over my drawing, and the action and pressure of the pencil are enough to lift the soft ground from the plate. You can see now that there are soft ground lines on the back of the drawing, as well as creases around the edges from where I folded it around the plate. These are the features found on Cassatt's surviving drawing, so that's how we know she transferred the image in this way. Since the soft ground is acid resistant, it will protect the plate during etching. The transfer reveals lines of bare copper beneath the layer of soft ground. This is ferric chloride, a solution that etches these lines. Cassatt likely used a different acid to etch her plates, such as Dutch mordant, based on research and analysis done at the National Gallery of Art. I'm leaving the plate in the acid for about a minute, just enough to alter the surface sheen of the plate. After removing the plate from the acid, I put it in water to stop the etching process. Then I clean off the soft ground with mineral spirits. Everywhere that I drew with my pencil is now etched very lightly into the plate. This is what Cassatt used as a guide when starting her dry point. Dry point is a technique where sharp needles, like some of these tools here, are used to scratch directly into the uncoated plate. Cassatt used dry point to create lines of her composition, as you can see in her early proof of The Letter. This was printed from one plate before she added aquatint and color. I'm scratching over the etched soft ground lines and adding more details as I go. The harder I press, the bolder the line will be. As the needle scratches, it displaces fine amounts of metal that hold extra ink. This extra ink creates rich, velvety marks and is a characteristic feature of dry point. After the dry point is complete, the first date is ready to print. With a stiff paper card, I'm spreading the ink over the entire plate, pushing ink into the dry point scratches. Then I use a crisp fabric called a tarlatan to wipe excess ink from the surface of the plate. Now the inked plate is ready to print. I'm placing damp paper onto the plate. It's necessary to use wet paper so that its fibers can press further into the plate to pick up ink. With the exception of the electric motor, this roller style press is essentially unchanged from the one Cassatt would have used. Here's the first state, showing only the lines of the composition. Now we'll use this print to transfer some of its ink to two other plates. Here's where the holes I drilled will come into play. I'm placing small pins through the printed registration marks. Then I'm finding the holes on the plate. Now that the paper's in place, I can remove the pins. While the ink and paper are still wet, I'm transferring some of the fresh ink onto my two bare plates. Now the image is offset onto the bare plate, in the exact way it did on the first. I'm repeating the process with the same proof on the third plate. The ink is fainter because less ink is transferring, but it's still visible enough to use as a guide. To add tonal areas of color to the print, Cassatt used the aquatint technique. In order to create a specific shape in aquatint, all other areas on the plate are protected with an acid-resistant material so that they don't get etched and retain ink. Since I can see the counterproofed image on the plate, I know which areas to protect by brushing on this shellac stopout. Here, on the plate with the flowers, I'm painting around each one so that the flowers will etch in the acid. I've repeated the stopout process for the three plates. Once we apply aquatint grain, the exposed areas will etch and they'll hold colorful ink. Once the stopout is dry, I'm dusting aquatint rosin over the plate. I'm hand sprinkling here so you can see it, but Cassatt would have used a special rosin box to get a fine and consistent coating. The powdery rosin is then fused to the plate with heat. You can see the white powder goes clear when melted and fused. Cassatt and her printer may have used a direct flame like this one, but you could also use a hot plate. Each tiny grain of rosin melts to create a little island of acid-resistant material. Acid eats around each of those grains to create a roughness to the plate that holds ink during printing. Now I'm putting each of the plates in the acid bath to etch, just like I did earlier. This time, I'm leaving the plates in the acid longer, about 30 minutes. Since more copper will be eaten away, the plate can hold more ink during printing, creating deep, rich tones in the final print. Once etching is complete, I clean off the plates. Now that the plates are complete, we're going to ink and print. Cassatt applied different colors of ink to each of the 3 plates. She also applied multiple colors to the same plate using a technique called à la poupée. For example, on this plate, the dress and desktop are inked in blue, and the flowers in the background are a combination of pink and green. I'm very carefully applying ink to those areas, but as I wipe away excess ink using the tarlatan, the colors blend into each other a little. You can see the flowers closer to the dress have a little blue mixed in. Cassatt decided which colors were okay to blend a little and which weren't. The pink part of her dress, for example, would get very muddy and lose its definition if it were printed à la poupée with the adjacent blue ink. So instead, the pink is on a different plate so that it doesn't blend with the blue. Now that the plates are inked and wiped, they're ready to print. The first plate is printed onto a sheet of blank paper. Here is the first layer, and I will continue printing the other 2 plates onto this sheet. Once again, I'm using the pin registration system. And here's the second layer with the pink and green flowers and the blue dress. After registering and printing all 3 plates, we have the final print. Cassatt's techniques were experimental and groundbreaking for her time. The letter is just one of a group of 10 scenes, each of which she produced using 2 to 3 copper plates and the techniques of soft ground, dry point, and aquatint. Cassatt made 25 copies of each of the 10 scenes, so a total of 250 prints, which required a huge amount of labor and time. Through this innovative printmaking process, Cassatt created prints that we're still working to understand today. Thanks for watching.